it is inevitable that you will help other people as a byproduct of your vulnerability, authenticity, and so on. And so, yeah, I just focused on what I needed and then trusted that would help the readers as a byproduct, but I didn't need to worry about how I was doing the helping. I just took myself on my own journey. Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome back to another episode of the Write with Chloe show. Podcast, show, I don't know, TBC. We'll eventually decide and stick to a name. I'm so honored to have you here. It is my deepest privilege to, spend a little bit of time with you, and hopefully what I'm going to share today will help you on your way and, let you become a published author in 3 years instead of 25 by just writing for half an hour a day, 5 days a week, instead of making it into this massive big thing of taking up 4 hours a day and taking 20 years to get published. That's my goal for you. So hopefully this episode helps you on your way. Today's topic, one of my students asked me, what helped you continue writing The Girls, my debut book, for such a long time? Did you think about the value of your story to the reader? So for those that don't know, you can go to my Instagram page at write_with_Chloe. And I have a couple of pinned posts there that goes into my story in a lot more detail. But essentially I lost 2 sisters in a car accident when I was 17, ended up in a psychiatric ward a year later and started journaling whilst there, and then pretty quickly decided, I want to become an author. And I want to write this story of this event. I'd grown up reading a lot and sort of dabbling in writing, but that was really the first time that I actually decided to pursue it while still in the psych ward. And I did it. So basically I tried to do it on my own for 5 years. I would work in Australia for 9 months and then quit my job, end my lease, go traveling for 3 months around the world and just spend the whole time writing. And then I would come back to Australia, get a different job, get a different house, etc. And I basically repeated that process for 5 years or something. And I wrote a lot of words, like hundreds of thousands of words, but I could never actually finish anything because I didn't know how to edit. I was approaching editing in the same way that I was approaching writing, and they are two literally opposite skills. So once I realized though that I was never going to be able to finish anything on my own, I decided to enroll in a university degree in creative writing. I ended up doing 2.5 degrees in creative writing because I quit my PhD halfway through after I'd finished my creative component. And that creative component of said PhD was what ended up being my book, The Girls, right? And it went on to have multiple agents and publishers pitching against each other to represent me and win or get shortlisted for 3 national awards and so on. However, from that day in the psych ward up until when I got published in August of 2019, it was 12 years. 12 years, right? And what's interesting to me about this question is that I don't actually consider that a crazy long time. When I was getting published, there were 5 of us girls in a little friendship group, and 3 of us, I think it was, were all getting published at the similar time. And the other 2 had been writing for like 20 or 25 years. They were in their one was, I think, in their 40s and the other was in their 50s or possibly even early 60s, where people had been writing for 2 or 3 decades and were, over middle-aged. And so actually I was kind of considered young to be getting published. And so it's interesting for me about this story, what helped me continue for such a long time. The thing is, I don't think it needs to take people that long. I definitely don't think it needs to take you 25 years, But I also don't think it even needs to take you 12 years. The biggest barrier that I had is that, or the biggest mistake rather, not barrier, is that I spent 5 years trying to do it on my own. And that's like trying to learn how to become a boxing fighter from watching YouTube videos with no training partners or no coach at home alone, right? Yeah, you're going to learn stuff, but it's going to be so much slower, right? Get a coach, it will speed things up drastically. And so my student asked me, how did I continue for such a long time? Honestly, for me, I just knew in my body that I was going to become a published author. Like my brain didn't necessarily know, but my body knew. Like I could just feel it. And I just chose every day to surrender into that. Even when my brain was going haywire, because there were so many times when my brain was going haywire, right? I got rejections, I got negative feedback, I got a low mark in university assignments, you name it, it happened, right? That's just part of the journey to becoming a published author. But even in those moments, even when my brain didn't believe it, something in my body knew. And I just chose to listen to that, right? It's kind of like, I haven't ever been in a long-term marriage or even a short one, but something I have often heard people that have been in a long-term marriage say about making that work is that they say they just continue to choose each other every day. The same is true for writing. Every day I just continued to choose writing. Now, the second piece with this is that I had the routines to back it up, right? I wasn't just like fantasizing about becoming a writer. I was actually living as though I was already a professional writer, like a decade before I was actually a professional writer. So like my daily schedule now as like a professional author and an entrepreneur hasn't changed in like 2 decades. This is still the routine I had back when I was like an intern and had never had anything published. Because I made the decision that I was going to be a published author, and so I was going to start behaving exactly as I imagined a published author behaved in terms of how they structured their day. And so on that kind of like physical logistical level, it was kind of inevitable. And I also actively cultivated that knowledge, right? That when you are behaving in this way that I just mentioned, your success is inevitable at some point. You know, I often tell my students the only red flag is a lack of consistency, i.e. you stop showing up, right? Everything else, no matter what it is, no matter if English isn't your first language, or you've gotten 10 rejection letters this month alone, or you've been trying to finish this story but you can't for the life of you get your head around how narrative arc works, like you name the obstacle, and I don't care what it is, I would still tell you, if you just keep showing up, that is the only thing that is going to dictate your future success, right? So I was aware of this from a really young age, to be honest, like too young, like 12. I feel like there's some like trauma shit going on there as well, I reckon, but from a really young age, like I had this belief that if you just kept showing up at something, it was inevitable that you would eventually get good at it. And I actively worked on instilling that into both my mindset, my behavior, and my energy. Proactively, right? In those moments of doubt, I let myself feel those feelings, the doubt, but I was also making sure my mindset was locked on to the future. And I just trusted myself, ultimately. And so this student, she said, like, what did she say? Like, did you think about the value of your story to the reader? Like, was that one of the things that helped you keep going? No, I'm not a what's that word? Mater? I don't know how to say that word. Marcher? What's that word? Mater? You know. Anyway, I can't pronounce it. I grew up reading too much instead of talking. You know the word that I mean, right? I don't believe in writing with the number one goal being to help others. Because A, you're just assuming what other people need, and that just never goes down well, right? But B, it puts you into a state where you're writing from your head, not your body, because you're trying to predict something about someone else's inner world. Whereas when you tune into your own inner world and write from your own body, it is inevitable that you will help other people as a byproduct of your vulnerability, authenticity, and so on. And so, yeah, I just focused on what I needed and then trusted that would help the readers as a byproduct, but I didn't need to worry about how I was doing the helping. I just took myself on my own journey, which was learning how to communicate with my mother. Basically, the sort of key underlying inquiry of my first book. Went on that journey, documented the process, and then my book, The Girls, as a result. And yeah, so many people have written to me about how much it helped them with their relationship with their mother or daughter. And so the last thing with this is, I don't presume what will help my reader, right? I trust that my reader will help themselves. And if I'm a part of that, great. But if I'm not, that's also fine. But when you make that your goal, the work, it lacks nuance and lacks depth because it's coming from like a fabricated understanding of something, as opposed to a real understanding of your own internal chaos. And because of how much deeper that understanding is, the level of nuance and complexity that you end up getting onto the page just automatically is far, far, far beyond anything you would be able to produce if you were proactively setting out to help others that are out there in the ether and whom you've never actually asked what they need anyway. So yeah, that's my tips, and that's, I guess, how I was able to stay consistent for so long until I got published. Listening to my intuition, cultivating self-belief, and understanding that if you keep showing up consistently, eventually your success is inevitable. I hope that helps. And if you want a bit of support about how to do this, my membership, Right From the Heart, is now available and open. And we meet online for an hour every Wednesday, and we talk through a lot of these issues, right, that people face. How to stay consistent, how to balance writing and work, how to be honest on the page, all that kind of stuff. And you also get access to a library of more than 30 videos where they're like broken into 2-minute segments and clearly labeled with the exact problem they're solving. And I tell you how to start to build a consistent writing routine. And then you have the community and accountability and all that kind of stuff as well. I'll pop the link below, and if you use the code Chloe, so my name, CHLOE, at checkout, then you get the first 7 days for free. So you can just come along and have a try and then skip out if you decide it's not for you. I hope this episode was helpful, and if you learnt something, I would love it if you could share it on your own social media or send it to a friend or relative. Sending love, and I'll see you next time.